Now we're at the end of row 28. We've just done a final slip stitch chain one right here, and now you can pull out a tail, take out your scissors, and snip that off, and you will not need the yellow anymore in this pattern. And then I would recommend stuffing now because you're going to do decreases in your next round. Stuff it firmly. If you are using a crochet hook to sew the wings and antenna on, I would not do this stuffing nearly as firmly, but if you're using a needle, go for it because the needle will poke right through the stuffing, whereas if you're using a crochet hook, the more firmly you stuff it, the more likely you are to pull up tufts of stuffing, and it's just annoying to deal with. For the stinger, you're going to attach the black just like we did before. Find the slip stitch, chain one, and insert your hook right into that same stitch that you made that in, and pull up a loop of the black, and then pull up a loop from behind, tighten it, and then you'll make a single crochet in that same spot. And then for this row, you're just going to do single crochet, decrease, single crochet around 3 times, and then you do not have to do a slip stitch chain one because we're almost to the end and you don't need to change colors anymore. We only have 3 rows left, so this row is going to be 9 single crochet around. Then you're going to do single crochet, decrease 3 times around, and then I'll meet back for the final row because it's a little bit funky since you're just closing up the tip. Alright, we are on the very last row, and all you have to do is single crochet in the first stitch, and then skip a stitch, and then single crochet again. And you could do more. All the other times I've made this, the hole has been really tiny at this point. But what I would do is just take out your stitch marker, pull out a fairly long tail, probably around the length of the bee. Go ahead and cut it with your scissors, and then you can use that to sew the point closed into a nice stinger shape, and you can also use this end to angle it down a bit. This is the first place where it's useful to have a needle instead of trying to do it with the crochet hook, because you can just get the details a little more precise. Now the main body of your bee is done, so you can set that aside, and we'll do the last little bit of black using for the antennas. They are very hard to see on camera. Again, it just will not focus very well. It looks like a black void. What you're going to do is leave yourself a long enough tail that it won't be too hard to weave in, and make a slip knot, insert your hook, and chain 9 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then again, super hard to see, but you're going to insert your hook into the second chain from the hook. Here's the first one, and then here's the second one, and you insert your hook and do a slip stitch, so pull up and then pull through, and go all the way back down to the start. There will be 8 in total. And then I tied the starting piece and the ending piece together, and then you'll make a second one. The final part of the bee that we're going to make is the wings. We're going to start with the back wings. They're fairly straightforward once you get the hang of them, but you essentially are working it around and then smishing it flat. So start with a magic ring of 6, and then you'll do some increases, and I will meet you at the end of row 3. At this point, you should squish the wing. Make sure you put the increases and decreases at the top and bottom. It can be a little bit hard to see, but it'll be around where your stitch marker is, so it's not going to be quite where the stitch marker is, but the stitch marker will come down on one side a little bit, and this way your wing will lay flat, so you have this nice little shape. And then you'll just do 10 single crochet around, and then you'll start the decreases, and the decreases will just be on the top and the bottom, so it only decreases is there, and it will not make the sides go in at all. It'll just stay nice and flat, and you don't need to stuff these pieces at all. Now that you've reached the final row of the first back wing, you can trim it off with a long enough tail to weave in and also to sew the wings together. So I found that worked best if the wings are kind of turned into one piece. They're just a little bit more stable. The first one was a little uneven and the wings kind of looked floppy and messy. So give yourself enough string so that you can sew it together, and then you'll make the second wing. Now that we have two back wings, we just have to do the front wings, and they're made along the same principle where you work it and then smush it flat, but there are a little bit of complications to get the shaping right, where I had to go beyond the end of the row for a decrease, so I will stop and show you those rows, but for the rest of it, it's pretty much like these wings. I'm now on the first row that we work beyond the end of the row. So it's going to start with a decrease, and then you're going to do 14 single crochet. But then for this last stitch, you're going to start a decrease and then finish the decrease in the next stitch. And I was going to show you with 2 stitch markers, but I think you can see well enough here. You start the stitch in the last stitch of the row, and then you pull up the next stitch as well, and then you'll just move your stitch marker to that new stitch, and this will now be the last stitch. And then I'll continue with the rest of the wing until I get to that other spot, just so I can show you again, and then we'll finish it off. In this row again, we're going to do that decrease and then crochet and then decrease. So you'll start your row with a decrease, and then we'll do 7 single crochet, and then we're going to start the decrease in the last stitch of the row and finish it in the first stitch of the next row, and then you can just finish or put the stitch marker back in, and this will be the new end of the row. And then to finish off, you're just going to work the decreases around until you have 6, and then you'll make a second wing. Once you've used one of the longer strings on the back wings to sew the 4 wing pieces together, you can use the other long string and the short pieces to attach it to the body of the bee. So you'll just start your needle, or you can use your crochet hook, whichever tools you have on hand, and try not to split the yarn. And then you'll want it centered over the bee's back. Your last step to making the bee is adding the antennas. So those are going to be more or less between the 5th and 6th round. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's again hard to see because it's black. So midway through the head, and they should line up kind of with the fronts of the wings. So right here and right here, and again I'll sew it in place and it'll make more sense. So as long as you like the antenna placement, the last step is going to be trimming off those ends and then working them back into the center a little bit. You can just squish the head, and there you go. Your own cute little bumblebee to hang out with you and maybe double as a cat toy if you decided to put catnip in it. Like I said, I would love to see any bumblebees you guys make. You can tag me at Goldberry's Gardens on Instagram. You can make it and send me a picture on Patreon, and you can comment below if you have any questions or any suggestions for future patterns. So that's all for today. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are.